All right, so let's look at worksheet 3. Really the only notes for today is reminders that to find the period for sine and cosine, it's 2 pi over b. To find the period for tangent, it's pi over b. We're going to be going backwards today, so I'm going to give you information, and you're going to write the equation. And the trickiest part is I'm going to give you the period, and you're going to have to come up with b. But it's still the same equation, so don't memorize the second equation. It's still period is 2 pi over b, or pi over b. And the rest of the equation you already know because you've worked with it enough. So let's do number 1. The sine function with an amplitude of 2. So a is 2. Period of 4 pi. So that means 4 pi equals 2 pi over b. Phase shift of pi over 2 to the right. No vertical shift. Okay, the trickiest part of all these is always figuring out what b is. The rest, just plug right into the equation. But figuring out what b is sometimes difficult. I think the easiest thing to do is to cross multiply. So 4 pi b equals 2 pi. And if we divide by 4 pi, then b equals, what does b equal? 1 over 2. Now, if you've done a bunch of these, you might get that right away because you're like, well, if the period doubled, that meant b was a half. But sometimes you get weird periods, and so just set period equal to 2 pi over b to figure out what b is. All right, it's a sine function. So y equals something with sine. Well, what number goes in front of sine? Amplitude. And the amplitude for this one is 2. So in goes a 2. We just said that b was 1/2. That goes there. How do we accomplish a pi over 2 to the right? X minus pi over 2. And how do we accomplish no vertical shift? Right, nothing. I guess you could put a plus 0 out there if you just wanted to really emphasize that there was no vertical shift. And so that's the answer, and that's it. So if you're good at graphing these, today's worksheet is pretty quick because you have a pretty good feel for these. Number 2, cosine function, amplitude of 1.25. By the way, we can give you some weirder numbers on today's worksheet because you don't have to graph them. So yes, some of these graphs would be kind of weird because we're going to throw some weird numbers in there, but the equation's easy to write, even though the graph would be a little bit more difficult. Period of 5 pi over 2. So 5 pi over 2 equals 2 pi over b. No phase shift, vertical shift of up 1. Why don't you try that one? So find b. Again, that's usually the hardest part of the whole deal. Find b, and then write the equation. And then we'll check and see how we did. So to find b, we cross multiply. So 5 pi b equals 4 pi. X multiply maybe? I don't know. Then divide by 5 pi to get b by itself. Pi's cancel and we get 4/5. Again, b is the hardest part of any of this stuff. Once you get b, you guys will know where to plug in all the pieces. So y equals cosine amplitude of 1.25, which would be annoying to graph, but again, you're not graphing them. 4/5 x, no phase shift, so I can just leave x. Or if you want to emphasize that there's no phase shift, you could put minus 0 in there. And a vertical shift of up 1. So again, really the graphing part is harder, and once you get competent at graphing, usually this worksheet goes pretty quick. try number 3. All start to finish, and then we'll go over it, and then period is pi over b, so 2 pi equals pi over b. A little algebra your way around to get b is 1/2. So y equals, doesn't mention anything about amplitude, so tangent, no phase shift. So 1/2 x plus 2. Again, I think most of you are going to cruise through this worksheet and be done before you leave today. That's the hope. I think I have answers. I will post answers in Schoology so that you can check and see how you did. Online people, have a great weekend. Well, actually, in-person people, you can have a good weekend as well.